Today I'm gonna just share with you something that I have kept a secret about my life. Something I was doing before I came to Christ, and something that's still being healed inside of me as of today. And my main goal for this video is to simply help you in some way by exposing my wounds. Because keeping a secret of what you've done will only hold your freedom. Because whatever you keep in the dark, the enemy will try to use against you and attach your identity to whatever you are afraid to confess. Around 8 years old, I had found out about adult content, completely self-exposed. And what I've learned recently was a root of that was from a TV show that I had watched. It was the Fantastic Four, which sounds weird, but there was a certain scene that I clearly remember in my head from that day of Susan Storm being captured by a villain. And the next scene, she is in a bikini tied to a chair. And something throughout my addiction of porn when I was 8 to like 15 was I was exposed to an extreme type of category, which was bondage content. Bondage, BDSM, whatever. That was the first type of adult content that I was exposed to. And it wasn't sex, it was tickling, which also sounds weird. Like, how do you develop an addiction with that? Well, I don't even know. But what I know is I liked tickling as a child because it was something fun and enjoyable. But then I had a thought to search it up on the internet, and that's what I became exposed to, restrained content. And the more that I watched it, the more I would go on the internet to find something that would satisfy my growing desires. And eventually, I stumbled on adult porn sites, which then I eventually started watching domination content in sexual form. And fast forward, as I'm watching these videos, I'm getting more and more desensitized to it. And fast forward, when 2020 hits, COVID, I no longer have to worry about going to school. Meaning I am free to watch as much adult content, BDSM content, to my heart's desires. And the more I'm doing that, the more desensitized and numb I am becoming. Because it's starting to become a normal part of my day. I would wake up and the first thing that I would do is grab my phone and start watching porn. And the reason I'm so confident about saying this to however many people may watch it is because the reason somebody may keep something a secret and be afraid to confess something that could ultimately be the key to their freedom is because they're afraid what people would think of them after they've said it. So in a way, me being scared to confess this would be me silently saying that I agree with what I did in my past, and that is who I am. But it's not. Just because that's the type of content I watched in the past doesn't identify who I am today or who I ever was. I didn't come out of my mother's womb with those addictions. They were seeds that were planted in my brain and just kept being watered. They were distortions of what God had originally intended for my life. And that's what I want to tell you. And I want to let you know it's the same for you. There are certain roots and seeds that are planted in your head that you're going to have to get your hands dirty and allow God to help you to dig through those memories, those times in your life that you're scared and are gonna hurt to go through. But the longer you try to stay away from finding those roots, the longer you are going to be trapped in a false identity of who you think you are because of what you did. And I'm not here to tell you it's gonna be comfortable, because it won't be. There is so much about your life that you have yet to discover. So many roots that you're gonna have to cut and surrender to God so you can actually be free. You cannot run from your pain. You cannot run from your past. The only thing you can do is accept what happened and also accept that's not who you are, but actively work with God to give away those old identities that you made yourself and accept the loving identity as a child of God that God himself personally has given you. You didn't give yourself the identity of I am a child of God. God gave that to you because truthfully, we will never feel worthy of that identity. But it's not about whether we feel worthy or not. It's whether or not we accept that this is what God, our Father, our Creator, has said about us. And it might take some time until you can finally accept that. Until you can finally take a deep breath and say, he's right, that's not who I am, because that's not who I was created to be. That's simply just a lie that I kept believing over and over and over again. And you know what? Let me give you a biblical example. In the New Testament, Jesus had a conversation with his disciples. He asked them, who do people say that I am? His disciples answered, some say you're Elijah or John the Baptist. And we can basically sum that up to saying people said that Jesus was John or Elijah, or basically just summed it up and said he's a prophet, which a lot of people think of Jesus today. If they believe in him, they probably think that he was just a prophet. That's the identity that people gave to Jesus. He's a prophet, a messenger sent from God. And Jesus could have very well accepted that identity had God not already told him who he was. So Jesus asked his disciples this very simple question. Who do other people say that I am? Okay? Who do you believe that I am? What do you believe has been said about me? And very simply, Peter answered, as God revealed, you are the Christ. In other words, you are the Lamb of God that was sent to take away the sins of the world and bring freedom to all those who are oppressed. Of that time, spiritual burdens, and in this time, and even back then, false identities and just broken individuals. See, Jesus came to give us a new life, not just in heaven, but on earth. A life that is free from the fear of exposing your wounds because of what you think other people might say about you. And the worst part that I'm scared to say, but I'm going to say anyway, because I believe that doesn't define who I am, is I got very numb and desensitized to pornography, the type of pornography that influences domination and oppression over other people. Like I said, BDSM. I got desensitized to a point where my mind started craving a deeper sense of domination that for a while I ended up watching a type of content where other people were treating people as human toilets. And that's what sin will do to you as long as you let it. Maybe not specifically that, but the longer you keep sin to yourself, the more desensitized you allow yourself to become to sin, it will take you a greater distance that no rational thinking would ever believe you could go. So yes, it started with something innocent, with something that I genuinely thought was joyful, and spiraled into a deeper sense of control and domination, which stemmed from a root of as I grew up, I was seeking for more control in my life. And when I didn't have control, that became a safe place for me to go to, that I would get a false sense of control. So pornography in itself was a symptom of a problem that I was only facing in my real life, and that was the only way at the time I knew how to cope with it. Similar to how somebody who is struggling with life and knows about weed can use weed to comfort something and feel a sense of relief and control. Because we are all hurting in this life, and what we seek is control and relief, but all we do is keep seeking it in the wrong places. And when that high goes down, we feel the same thing that we did before we indulged in what we saw was comfortable for a time. And that's how the enemy keeps you trapped. That's how he creates these links to keep you in a cycle of spiritual bondage. Because it's like, it works. Not for a long time, but it works. So just keep using that until you feel better. But there will come a time where you become so numb that if you hit it or watch it, it won't do anything for you. Because your brain no longer views it as enough. And that's how you grow deeper and deeper into certain actions and attitudes. So your problem is not the symptom or behavior itself. It's what's inside of you that's causing you to seek out these external pleasures. Something you have not confessed, something you have not brought to God and allowed Him to take you through the necessary journey to discover and heal from those hurts, from those traumas, from those wounds. My longing for control, my longing to have peace in my life, my longing to feel like I was somebody that I mattered and that I was important, led me to a path of pornography that caused me to think if I can have control over somebody else, I will be able to feel better about myself. I will feel cooler. I will be able to live up to a standard of men that society keeps trying to push. That men should be tough. That men don't need to express emotion. That they are strong enough to carry the entire world on their shoulders. Because they are supposed to be leaders. And leaders are strong. But just because leaders are strong don't mean that they can't be vulnerable. A leader is only as strong as his will to admit that he needs help. Because yes, even if you've been called to lead, there are certain areas that you yourself as a human being have not gotten full control of. That's why Jesus says, confess to one another, because you were not made to bear these burdens on your own. So I hope that me expressing something I've went through and still struggle with can give a light and a key to you to realize just because you are struggling about things that have happened in your past does not mean you have to stay that way, and it does not mean you have to keep it a secret, because it doesn't define you. Me watching all of that content, BDSM, homosexual content, transsexual content, scat content, fandom, everything that I've ever watched does not define who I am. It is just simply resources I was using to regain a sense of control and joy that could only have been found in God. Because porn twisted my perception of what intimacy, love, leadership, and control meant, and submission was. Your life doesn't have to be polished. You don't have to be clean to heal. In the Bible it says that in Christ we are a new creation. You don't wash yourself. Jesus washes you, which I know is a common saying in churches as a Christian. But let me put it to you like this. If you spill something on your clothes and you put it in the washer, that stain will come out. And the shirt, if you dirty something and wash it, will you still identify that the shirt has a stain, that it's dirty? No, you won't, because there's no filthiness to see. So when Jesus says that we are washed, what he's saying is, I don't see you as your sin. I don't see you as what you've done in the past. That doesn't mean I ignore it. That means that I don't identify you with it. And because for me personally, that is not who I've said that you are. So I'm not going to identify you with something that I have not created you to be. You are not an addict. You are not hopeless. You are not too far gone for Jesus to say, come to me. All of you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. I will give you the strength to expose your wounds. I will give you the strength to face your past and help you to heal. I have given you the strength to heal. And the moment you trust me to continue walking, to be restored and healed and made new, I will be able to make you a blessing to others, to give them the same hope that I have revealed to you, that can only be found in me as you choose to keep walking with me, because you believe in who I have declared that you are and not what you have done. That was a result of all the brokenness, damage, trauma that you had experienced before you had any type of self-awareness or identity. Every problem you face starts from somewhere. The things you deal with now didn't come from nothing. Addiction isn't born out of nothing. Pain isn't born from nothing. Everything we go through is stemmed from a situation that affected us negatively in our past, whether we realized it at the time or not. And the truth of the matter is, you're probably being affected by something you have no recollection of. But the longer that stays in the dark, the longer you will continue to remain confused about why you're acting a certain way. And if any point you judge me for what I've said in this video and what I've exposed, so be it. I don't care. And I'm not saying that to sound tough. I'm saying that because I don't acknowledge that whatever I've been through defines who I am today. Because if it did, I wouldn't be making this video. And I want to let you know you have a choice. You can either stay and allow what you're struggling with to define you and keep you in a cycle of repeating those same actions over and over again, or you can face it, and even if it's a little bit, believe what Christ has said about you, and believe that mustard seed of belief to propel you to live a life according to the grace that Christ has given you, that empowers you to keep spreading the gospel, to keep practicing holiness, to keep being a light for people who are still trapped in darkness. Because that's what we're called to do. Christianity isn't a feel-good religion for only you. You have been called to be a light. And what it means to be a light is to take what you have kept in the dark and expose it to free somebody else who may have been trapped in that same area. Because that's what Christ came to die for. Not to just give you a spot in heaven, but to free you from the oppression of sin and hurt and addiction, by which is a result of every root that is yet to be uprooted via the word of God. The truth hurts, but it will set you free if you choose to endure. So despite everything that you're going through, I only have one more question for you. Despite everything, each day you wake up, and even now, who will you choose to be, and how will you choose to live? I'm not saying you will be perfect, but if you have even one thing that you care about more than life itself, whether it's a family, a goal, yourself, Christ, are you willing to live a life and take steps to live a life that will be a greater benefit for the things and people that you hold dear to your heart? Because that is the people that God is looking to worship Him. People that will take their wounds, surrender them to Him, and live a life that says, God, I trust you with these wounds, and I trust you to guide me to expose these wounds for the purpose that they can be the deciding factor of somebody else's freedom and salvation. Because that is the true purpose of a child of God. So, I hope this video helped you and edified you in some way, shape, or form. And I hope you have the great rest of your day, night, evening, whenever you may be watching this. And until next time, God bless.